Well, hello, everyone. It's me, Will Martin, and this is SEO and Content Conversation. And this episode is actually being recorded live, streaming to the members of my academy, subscribers to my website. It's an exclusive link to check it out. So thank you to everyone who's joining me live. We're going to do some cool stuff today. We're going to do some Q&A. So if you've got any questions, go ahead and throw those in the chat and I will answer those. I've got a few questions to get us started and get the conversation going. But then we're going to cover a couple of things that have been top of mind for me when it comes to SEO, a couple of things that I want to clue you guys in on and let you know about, just so that you can be prepared. And then we're going to cover some upcoming trends, things to look for in 2021. So this is being recorded, streamed live on New Year's Eve, 2020. It's the last day of 2020, guys, the last day, the last afternoon of 2020. So this time tomorrow, it'll be a brand new year. And I get that all of our problems from 2020 don't necessarily go away just because the year changes, but it is an opportunity to kind of have a clean slate, right? And mentally, we can kind of start over and start fresh. And that includes things like your business, your content channel, the things that you've worked hard to build in 2020, making sure you put forth the right effort to enhance those things in 2021. So I'm excited to share some stuff with you guys. Again, if you're here live, go ahead and throw your questions, thoughts, comments there in the chat, and we'll get rolling. But first of all, I just wanted to say a special thank you to all of the members of my academy, the SEO and Content Creators Academy. We've got 1 month under our belts, and I think it's been a lot of fun. It's been really great getting to know some of you guys, hearing about your businesses, being able to look at your websites and help you guys out with some tips and tutorials. We covered things like title tags, meta descriptions, gave away some YouTube thumbnail Canva templates that hopefully are going to be useful to you guys who are doing YouTube marketing. We're going to talk a little bit about that at the end of the session today, looking ahead to 2021. But hopefully a lot of value has been added to you guys through this SEO and Content Academy. I'm excited about January, some of the things that are coming up. Just wanted to run through a few of those with you. So first of all, if you joined in December and you were able to take my SEO 101 course, I'd love to hear how that went for you, what you learned from it, how that's impacted your website, your SEO strategy, if you learned a lot, or if there's anything I can do to improve it. I'd love to know that too. It's going to be kind of an ongoing thing. I'm going to keep it up to date because one of the aspects of SEO that it can be aggravating is that it's always changing, right? So some of the things that we focused on, 3 months ago, they might not be as important now. There might be new things that are going to be important. We're going to get to that when I talk a little bit about trends for 2021, which I think is going to be really helpful for you guys as you shape how to approach your strategy with SEO and with content for 2021. But the big thing coming up in January for all pro members, so that's the paid tier of my SEO Academy. Joining the Academy is completely free. There's a free community. You get free access to my resource list and things like that, exclusive tips, tutorials, kind of going deeper than I do on social media. If you guys follow me over there and my tips and things that I post on TikTok and Instagram and LinkedIn and Facebook and those places, the Academy actually goes a little deeper. And the cool thing about the Academy too is it's kind of like a social network. It's like a networking hub for other content creators, other small business owners, other online shop owners and things like that. So it's a great place to share wins and losses, questions, what's working for you, what you're struggling with, and having people, not just me, but everyone involved weigh in on it. So we've begun creating a really cool community of business owners and content creators, and I'm really excited to see where that's going to go in the new year. But first, the big thing coming out in January for my pro members is a new course on keyword research. So the SEO 101 course kind of brought you up to speed on how to think about SEO, how to approach it mentally, what it means, how it works, why it's important, and how it can impact your bottom line for your business, and what good SEO looks like, right? So I think it's helpful in shaping how you think about SEO, how you approach it, and how you begin developing that SEO strategy. But the first part, after you define your target audience, the first major component of SEO is keyword research. And keyword research can be tedious if you don't have the right tools and you don't have the right insight on how to do effective keyword research. So I'm going to dive in January in my keyword research course, available to all pro members. It'll also be available if you want to purchase it standalone. But I'm going to go into how to find the right keywords, how to do it for free, because there's a number of free tools out there. I'm actually going to walk through how to do it with the free tools that are out there. So if you're at a place where you are concerned about your SEO, but you're not at a place financially in your business where you can invest a lot of money into your SEO, I'm going to give you the tools to go and find those keywords for free and begin building your keyword strategy for your website or your social channel around those keywords. So I'm going to cover some free tools. I'm also going to cover some paid tools that I use as well, because I want everybody to be able to see what the capabilities are and what the differences are. And so yes, there's free options out there, but I always advocate, if you really, really want to go deeper and have the best of the best, you get what you pay for when you invest in SEO. So, at least giving you a glimpse of when you're at the point where you're ready to start paying for a tool to monitor and to research your SEO, you'll at least have a glimpse of what the different tools look like, how they interact, the user experience, and potentially which one would be best for you and for your business and your strategy. So that's the big thing coming up in January that I'm excited about. That's going to come out in the next week or so. So thank you again to all my pro members. You've got that to look forward to. If you're not currently a pro member, but you're a member of the Academy, you can go upgrade. Just go to the memberships tab and click on pro and sign up and upgrade to the pro membership. You won't regret it. I'm also doing 5-minute website reviews. So if you want some hands-on look at your website, shoot me your URL and I'll do a quick video for the whole group, just taking 5 minutes to assess your on-page SEO and giving you some actionable tips that you can then take and make some SEO improvements to your website. So there's a lot going on there in the pro membership. So if you're not a member, I would encourage you to go do that. And as always, let me know what you guys are dealing with. Let me know what you are concerned about when it comes to SEO. What's top of the mind for you, for your blog, your website, your online store, or your YouTube channel, or your Instagram, any of that stuff. SEO applies to all that stuff. So whatever's top of mind for you guys, feel free to reach out to me, message me, drop it in the chat if you're watching live, and we can hit on that. But what I wanted to do to get started today is to jump in with some Q&A. So I pulled some questions to kind of get us started. Some of the top questions that I get asked on social media. These are from Instagram and TikTok, and I wanted to address those here because a lot of times, just dropping a comment or making a 15-second video reply, it doesn't really do it justice. So for you guys in the Academy and you guys watching this and listening to this, I wanted to be able to give you some deeper insight on some of these questions. So we're going to get the ball rolling here. This is a question I got on Instagram. And this says, thanks for the tips for number 2, which this was a video where I was covering different things to look out for. One of them was technical SEO. What's the most important technical issues to watch out for? So this is a question that a lot of you guys have, and technical SEO can be a little scary because it's in the weeds, and we're not all technical. I'm not even technically minded, and I'm an SEO guy. I deal with websites every day, and some of the deeper technical stuff, can seem really daunting to me. And so this is a great question. You know, what's the most important technical issues to watch out for? And my answer to this question, so there's a few. I would say the main one is going to be your page load speed. Your page load speed is paramount when it comes to the user experience of your website, especially on mobile. And this is important because not only does it fuel into your SEO. So if you have a slow loading page, it's going to hinder your SEO. But it's also just going to hinder the overall user experience. And the goal of SEO is not just rankings. The goal of SEO is to create a user experience to get people to your site and create an experience that will convert them into customers, right? It will make them want to part with their money and give it to you, because the experience, the online experience that you've created for them is so awesome. And so part of that is making sure that it loads as fast as possible. I mean, we have microscopic attention spans in this day and age. So you've got to keep that in mind when you're building your website and when you're checking your website. And one of the things about page speed is that page speed can deteriorate over time without you even really knowing. That's kind of the scary part of it. But the good news is that there's a number of tools out there that you can use to track your page speed. The one I always recommend for free is the actual Google Page Speed Insights. So if you Google Page Speed Insights, that top result is a Google website where you can put your URL in. It'll scan both your desktop and your mobile versions, and it'll give you a report on your page speed. And it'll cover everything from, time to interactive and full page load. So those are two different things. And you really do want to hone in and pay attention on time to interactive. Because that is the number that tells you how long it takes before somebody can interact with your site. And you want your site to be interactive as soon as possible. And so there's a number of things and different strategies you can employ if your time to interactive is really slow. And you can reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you strategize and figure out some of those ways for your site, because it's different on every platform, but to enhance that. But when it comes to technical SEO, I would say page speed is going to be the most important thing to focus on. A close second to that, and the only reason that this is second is because it's not. This is something that is pretty standard a lot of times, depending on, if you built your website on Squarespace or Wix, then this is automatic and you don't even have to worry about it. But there are a few instances where unsecure pages will really hurt your SEO. So that means that your website does not use the HTTPS address. It uses HTTP, and that's not a secure web format. And so that can hinder your SEO, because Google wants to make sure that it's showing searchers secure websites, secure pages. So that's a close second, but that's one of those things that it is kind of one and done. Once you set it up and you get your site secure, you're good to go. But page speed is one of those important technical factors that you do need to keep monitoring. You need to keep a good handle on, so you can make sure that you're not hindering that user experience and you're not hindering your SEO. So the next question here also came from Instagram, and this was a really good question. I think it was on a video where I was stressing the importance of ongoing SEO, that SEO is not a one and done solution. It's not like you can go SEO your website and then call it good, and it's just going to stay SEO'd forever. But this came from Instagram. It says, why should I continue SEO once I've gotten good rankings? And, my response to this was essentially because everything's always changing. Things are always changing. So here's all the things that are consistently changing when it comes to SEO. Number one, that blasted Google algorithm. It's always shifting. It's always changing. There's always seems to be updates and things that will cause volatility in rankings. And so a lot of the clients that I monitor, there will just be like a couple of days out of the month where their rankings will just drop and then they'll come back. And then there will be some times where they'll drop and they'll stay dropped. And that's when we have to strategize and say, okay, we got to get those rankings back. Let's go optimize A, B, and C. Let's make some changes here and get those rankings back. And that's the primary reason, because Google is constantly looking to upgrade their user experience for their searchers. So they're always wanting to continually give the best results for user searches. And so part of that is their algorithms always changing. Their criteria for content's always changing. And so you really need to either be on top of that, or you need to be partnered with somebody who is on top of that and monitoring that, so that you can pivot your strategy, you can make adjustments, you can make sure that you maintain those rankings that you work so hard for. The second thing that's always changing is your competitors. If you have a competitor, especially if you have competitors who are actively optimizing their site for SEO, you can quickly fall down the list on those rankings and lose spots to those competitors because they're continually updating and optimizing. So you can put in the work to gain those rankings initially, and then your competition can come in, and if they're continually optimizing, Google's going to see that, and they might begin to outrank you. Their authority might get higher than yours. Their frequency of new valuable content might outpace you. And so that's one of the reasons why it's important to have an ongoing SEO strategy as well, because you want to consistently outdo your competition. I don't do any SEO strategies where I don't also monitor top competitors and see if they're gaining a bunch of rankings, if they're gaining a bunch of backlinks, because you can get a lot of insight into not just the industry and not just their website, but you can get a lot of things out of that you can then turn around and use to fuel your SEO strategy, so that you can not only keep up with your competition, but that you can outdo your competition. So the algorithm's always changing, competitors are always changing. And then the third thing that's always changing is search trends, search behaviors. You can look, if you go to trends.google.com, you can go and you can type in something related to your industry. And chances are you're going to see spikes and dips in the search interest for what you do. And that's just part of life. There's some things that are seasonal. When Christmas rolls around, searches spike for toys and different things like that. So that's a seasonal trend. But there's also trends that might not totally be seasonal. They might just be, user interest has gone up. And so there's more search traffic and more searches being done for a specific term. And so it's good to stay on top of that for your SEO so that you can capitalize on that. I mean, if you're in a business and you sell, apparel, and you're monitoring trends for SEO, and you notice that there's a spike in search trends for a specific kind of sweatshirt or sweater, right? And that's something that you sell. Well, then you can then turn around and begin to create some content, some blog content. You can spotlight some of your listings. You can do some things that are going to make you a lot more prevalent for that search, since the trend has gone up. So monitoring those trends is important. So the top 3 reasons to make sure that you continually do SEO is the Google algorithm shifts, your competitors are going to be doing SEO to outperform you, and then monitoring those user behaviors so that you can stay on top of that and you can maximize your visibility based on those user behaviors. This next question came from TikTok. And it says, does an SEO specialist need to have any knowledge of actual programming languages? And you could fill in the blank where it says SEO specialist with anything, whatever you do for your business, even a business owner. If you're a business owner and you are, updating your website, you're monitoring it, you are kind of the person that's in charge of that, because a lot of us as small business owners, we're like a 1, 2, 3-man show, right? And so that those website updates fall on us, and we're performing those. And so the question is, do you need to have knowledge of actual programming languages? So like CSS, JavaScript, coding, all that kind of stuff, HTML. And my answer to that is no. And the reason that my answer is no is because there's so many tools out there where you can build a great website without having to have programming knowledge. It's definitely a plus if you do have it, but I haven't run into an instance. I've built several websites for people. and I manage several websites for clients. And I have yet to run into a situation where I needed to know coding in order to fix it. So, the platforms I mentioned earlier, Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, even Weebly, there's a bunch of very approachable website building platforms out there. And now I will give this disclaimer, and I think I made a video about this, but if you listen to the gurus, right, and I put that in quotes because we all know what I'm talking about when we talk about gurus, they'll tell you not to use platforms like that. And the only reason they tell you that is because they actually know programming languages, and they know that if you don't use those, you'll have to come to them. So it's really, number one, it's a business ploy, but number two, for them, it doesn't make sense to use Squarespace because they have knowledge of programming languages. I'm talking to you guys as business owners, as content creators, as people who you don't have time to go learn coding. You know what I mean? You're focused on your business. You're focused on getting new clients. You're focused on getting more traffic to your website and to your blog so that you can create new customers and generate income for you and your family. That's what you need to be focused on. You don't need to be focused on learning coding and all this technical stuff so that you can do all these things that you don't even need to know how to do. So my advice is always no. Don't worry about trying to learn it unless it's just something you're genuinely interested in. And if you ever run into a problem where you need to know coding, then in that instance, in that very rare instance, you could look for a web developer. Reach out to me. I know a few who are trustworthy and are priced well. Or you can go on Fiverr. That's always kind of a shot in the dark, but you can go find a web developer who will understand the problem and can go fix it for you. But the time investment that it would take to learn one of these programming languages is really not worth the payoff, especially if you're in the position you're in. All right, next question. This also came from TikTok. Does placement of press releases in newspaper websites work for SEO as links? This is a really great question. And this is something that I, depending on the business, I like to factor this in to an SEO strategy for a couple of reasons. And there's a couple of things to know about this. So what he's asking is, if you're a business and you're putting out press releases, those are getting picked up by newspapers and their websites, right? So you've got a local newspaper and you put out a press release about your company or a partnership or something like that, and it gets published on the newspaper's website. Do those links help your SEO? And the definite answer is yes. I mean, any link to your website from another website is good. Any backlink is going to help because it provides more opportunity for people to get to your site. So somebody can be reading that press release and they can click on it, they can get to your site. So that can get you more traffic. And then number two, it does factor in as a backlink for SEO. And so the more backlinks that you have across the internet, the greater your authority is for SEO, your website authority. And the greater your authority is, the more rankable your website is. So when Google goes to rank websites, they're going to look at pages with the higher authority. They're going to serve those up first. So that's why authority is important for SEO. Backlinks are one of the primary factors of authority. It's not the only factor. There are a few other factors. If you go back and watch the last live stream here on my YouTube channel, I talk a little bit about off-page SEO and the things outside of backlinks that impact that. But yeah, this is a great opportunity. And so my response to this question, and I'll say it here too, is when you're putting out those press releases, make sure that you are including a link to your website. Make sure that you call that out somewhere in the press release so that that link gets published and you get that authority from having that backlink. And one thing that people will say for this, and some pushback I've gotten here, again, from the gurus, is that, aren't backlinks like that considered no follow? And what no follow is That's something in the code that websites will put often on user-generated content that basically is meant to tell search engines, hey, don't give them any authority for this link. This is a user-generated link. And it was meant to avoid spam, people going into comments and posting a bunch of links to their own site to try to get that account as a backlink. But Google announced, and I suspect this has been the case for a long time, but about mid-year last year, that the no follow attribute in links was going to be treated as a hint. And so I don't necessarily buy into the fact that no follow backlinks are not good for your SEO, because at the end of the day, like I said, it provides an opportunity for people to get to your website from another website, which even if you don't get the increased authority, that's good. You've opened a door. As many doors as you can open across the internet is good for your business, good for your website traffic. And so I would make that a best practice if you are in a position, if you're in a company where you're putting out press releases that are going to get picked up by potentially online publications. So I hope that was helpful. I'd love to hear from any of you guys. If you guys have done this, drop it in the comments. Let me know, because I personally have seen a little bit of success from this. I've seen some authority increases from clients who were heavy on press releases and would gain backlinks. And I thought it might be temporary, but it was actually sustained for about a year while they were my clients. So if you guys have any experiences with that or any thoughts on that, feel free to drop that in the comments as well. But we'll move on to this question, also from TikTok. And this was regarding a video I did about increasing your Instagram engagement. So one of the recommendations I made was to create a brand specific hashtag, and then encourage your customers, encourage your followers to use that hashtag in their posts. And when they do, you share that post to your story or you share it to your feed, and you're creating a sense of importance for not only your brand, but for your customers personally, because they have the opportunity to be spotlighted. And so this works great for apparel companies. This works great for really any business where your product or service is going to could potentially be shown off on Instagram. So what I mean by that is so for example, so I know we have a lot of photographers in the SEO Academy, which is awesome. And so let's say that you create a specific hashtag. Obviously, people can tag you. That's another way. That's another popular thing for photographers. You do the camera emoji and put the credit to the photographer, so they might tag you that way. That works too. But let's say you created a specific hashtag and it was, hey, it's Will Photos, or hey, it's Will Photography, or something like that. And you encourage your clients to, when they posted your photography, to put that hashtag on there, and to kind of reward them whenever they do, you share it to your stories. So you're kind of giving them a shout out back, right? And so this is a really cool thing. It does help create engagement, and it helps create more buy-in to your brand. And so the question here is, how do I get my followers to do this? What do I actually say? And so I had a couple of ideas for that. So you might be thinking the same thing. You might think, well, Will, that's cool, but how do I get people to actually do it? If you sell a physical product, let's say you sell apparel, I would make up some business cards with that hashtag on it and stick it in every order and say, hey, post using this hashtag and we will share it to our many followers, and just encouraging them that way. And then the cool thing is it kind of fuels itself, because the more that you share it and the more that people realize that you're sharing it because they're using that hashtag, they're going to start wanting to use that hashtag. So yes, if you have a physical product like that, I would stick a card in there. If not, just getting the word out via social media. I mean, make a post in Canva that explains, hey, here's my hashtag, use it. And, or do a giveaway. That's a really popular thing too. So maybe you do a giveaway and you say, hey, post using this hashtag, we'll share it and you'll be entered for a free fill in the blank. So it's really just about getting creative and getting strategic about what your actual business is. and how you can translate a hashtag strategy like that into it, because you're going to raise brand awareness, you're going to increase customer buy-in and customer loyalty, and you're going to open up doors for people to interact with you more, which at the end of the day is what social media is all about. It's some people mistakenly use it as a way to just self-promote, but social media is really about interaction. It's about providing value to your audience and interacting with them as a result. And so I wanted to share that here. And I don't know if you guys have had any success with this. I'd love to hear about it. But it's something that I've seen go really well for different clients, and I've seen it happening across Instagram, and it's really cool to see, because it makes that shift from, hey, Instagram is just a platform to put yourself on blast, to Instagram is now a platform where you can interact and create customer buy-in. So let me know if you guys have any success stories with that, or if you want any more ideas, feel free to reach out to me. But we got one more question here from TikTok. Could you cover the alt text topic? So if you guys have followed me for any amount of time, you've probably seen me post at least once about alt text. And so I want to explain a little bit and focus on that as we wrap up this portion, and give you guys some insight on alt text, because this is something that I've become not fixated on, but something that I've dove into this, with both feet, jumped into it with both feet, and have really explored all the possibilities and what alt text is and why it's important. So just to give you a brief overview of alt text. So alt text is the text that you program for an image. So depending on the platform that you're in, when you put an image on your website, it'll usually have a box that says alt text. Sometimes this is called alt tags. Sometimes it's called alt attributes. There's a few different names, but that alt is pretty universal. So alt tags, alt text, alt attributes, alt description. If you see that anywhere, that's what I'm talking about. But this is where you essentially are telling what the image is. You're describing the image. And the primary purpose of this, because you hear this a lot when it comes to SEO, and I talk about it a lot when it comes to SEO, but I want to make sure that we're clear that the primary purpose of your alt text is for website accessibility. It's so that someone with a disability, maybe someone who's seeing impaired or they have really bad vision, they might be listening to your website. It's so that they can access your content. And so the main reason, the primary reason for alt text even existing is accessibility. So I don't want to get that mixed up with thinking that alt text exists to enhance your SEO. It exists for accessibility. So when you're writing alt text, you should start by thinking about accessibility, thinking about making your site inclusive to anybody, no matter if they have a disability or not. I mean, it's the equivalent of putting a wheelchair ramp on your business. You need that to make your business inclusive, to not exclude anyone, to show the world that you're open to everyone, right? Same thing with your website. And so putting that alt text in there is great, but you want to follow the guidelines of making sure that you are describing the image. Because what some people mistakenly do is they see it as such an opportunity for SEO that they start stuffing it with their keywords. And they might not even describe the image. They might literally just use it as a space to stuff their keywords in there. And you don't want to do that, because Google is savvy enough, most search engines are savvy enough to know that you're keyword stuffing, and they're not going to give you good SEO cred for that. They might even penalize you. So I did get into it with a guy on TikTok about this, because he was claiming that keyword stuffing your alt text was the way to go. And I was just like, man, it's not 2008 anymore. Things have changed. Google, the algorithm is savvy. The web crawler is savvy enough to know when you're trying to keyword stuff, and they're not going to give you that credibility. So it does benefit your SEO, but the main benefit to your SEO is that it sees that your website's accessible. So it's actually more important to your SEO to make the alt text accurate and descriptive, and have it fulfill its purpose to make your site accessible to those with disabilities. That actually, it does more for your SEO than keyword stuffing, because keyword stuffing, again, can potentially hurt your SEO. So this is something that I think is widely debated across, the SEO professionals. So this is my stance on it, is that, it's first and foremost about accessibility. And so when you're putting in your alt text, when you're filling that in, you're writing that for all your images, do it with accessibility and ADA compliance in mind. ADA compliance is another word for accessibility for those who might have a disability. So you want your site to be ADA compliant. And so when you're doing your alt tag, your alt text, and your alt tags, alt attributes, alt description, whatever it's called, on your website platform, make sure you're being concise and descriptive. Now, if you can work your keywords in there, then that's awesome. That's a plus. If it's applicable to the image, which a lot of times it might be, then you can stick your keywords in there, and you can word them to match the keywords that you're targeting. But my point is, don't force it. Make sure that first and foremost, you're looking to describe the image and make it accessible to everyone. So appreciate that. All right, so let's look here. Hey, Rachel. Rachel's joining us. Oh, good. You're excited about keyword research. Me too. I'm really excited about this course. I think it's going to be really, really useful for a lot of people. If you go and start looking for keyword research tutorials, a lot of times they want you to pay for an expensive tool, and I'm not going to do that. So I'm going to show you how to do it free. And so I'm excited to show you guys that. So yeah, Rachel's got a question here. She says, is it okay to change the SEO title from your original blog title? When would you want to do that? Yes, it is okay to do that. And I've actually done that quite frequently, because there are different limitations to the title tag, which is what you're talking about, your SEO title, versus the actual title that appears on your page. So you want them to be similar. Like you want them to include some of the same keywords, but you can reword it, you can add, you can subtract for your SEO title based on your keyword strategy and what you want to rank for. And so, one small example of this is, if you write a title and on your page you like to spell out numbers, so like the number 4, FOUR. So you've got FOUR ways to do this. In your SEO title, you might just use the numeral 4 because that saves space and it's more eye-catching and things like that. That's totally fine. You can use ampersands instead of the word "and" is really helpful. And I mean, you can shorten it. So your on-page title might actually be a bit longer because you don't have the same limitations and it's not going to get truncated. So you might have even a subtext or something on your page, but you can remove that for your SEO title and just focus it in on what your content is about, right? So yeah, to answer your question, that's completely acceptable. When would you want to do that? So the things I just mentioned. So if you want to save space and make sure your title doesn't get truncated. Also, if you wanted to add your some platforms do this and some don't, but if you wanted to add your brand name or your name on there, some of them don't do it automatically, some do, but you could do that. That would be a reason that you would customize your title so that when that link shows up in search results, your brand name is there. So that would be one reason you want to do it, but mainly it would be to make sure it's focused in on your keywords and to make sure that it's short enough so it's not too long where it's going to get truncated. So yeah, great question, Rachel. Thanks for joining us. And As I said before, this is being recorded live, and so if you want to join live, make sure you're a member of my academy, and I'll be sending out links to these live streams so that you can join, ask your questions, and we can have a lively conversation. But from here, what I wanted to do is I wanted to move on, and we are in the last day of 2020, right? We're in the final day. Tomorrow starts a new year. And so I want to look at some of the top trends that I see coming up in 2021 for SEO, because a lot of us are asking that. As I mentioned before, SEO is always changing, and so it's important to stay on top of those trends. And so I'm going to highlight 3 trends before we call it a day and call it a year, to look ahead towards in 2021, to make sure that you're on top of things and that you're not getting left behind when it comes to these trends. And so SEO trends for 2021, this is something that this is the world I live in, right? So I'm always looking at trends. I'm always looking at search behaviors and different things like that, because it's my job. It's probably not your job. So I wanted to take some of these and translate them and put them in front of you as we begin a new year, so that you can begin thinking about these for your business. And as always, if you've got questions, reach out to me. If you need some help or some coaching, fine tuning some of this specifically for your business, then I'm happy to help with that. But let's get started with some trends for 2021. So the first trend is not new, but it's something that I believe is going to become far more important over the next 365 days than it already is. And that is focusing on user intent. User intent is exactly what it sounds like. It's the intent of the user. It's when somebody does a Google search, what are they actually looking for when they conduct that search? And so you run into this stuff with, let's see, I'm trying to think of a term that might be interchangeable, but a term that can mean 2 different things. Google's going to look at whichever topic gets the most traffic, and they're going to say that's the user intent for that search. And so that it's something that you've got to stay on top of, because you want to make sure that you're ranking for the right terms and that you're answering the right questions. So like even with marketing, right? So I work in the marketing world. If you do a search for a specific kind of marketing, you're going to get the results based on Google's data of what people typically click on when they do that search. So you can search for marketing and you might get traditional marketing. You might get only digital marketing. You might get online marketing, SEO. There's all these facets of marketing. And so it's important to analyze those searches to see what Google is deeming as the search intent, the user intent, so that you make sure you're targeting the right terms. I went through this with a client recently who had built their content strategy and their website around an idea that they had, which was the target audience for their product, right, for their online store. And then as I went in and did an audit for them and I did some research, I realized that hey, when you look at the search results for these terms, you're completely different. What you're offering is completely different than what Google is serving up as what they perceive as the user intent. So that was something that we had to really pivot and kind of rebuild that strategy, because it made sense in his mind, and even in my mind, if I thought about it, to target that search, but the data wasn't there to show that Google would think that his shop would be a viable result or a useful result for someone conducting that search. So it's important to stay on top of that. And you can do this by doing a quick Google search for the term if you're curious about it, looking at the results and clicking through some of them and trying to figure out, okay, does my content fit in with this? Am I answering the same questions? Am I providing the same value that these results are? Because if it's not, your likelihood of ranking for that is going to diminish. And so, do those SERP research, looking at the SERP pages, which stands for search engine result pages. and determine that user intent before you really bunker down and target a certain keyword. So after you do your keyword research, find that user intent. The other part of user intent is to optimize for EAT. I did a TikTok video about this a week or two ago, but back in 2014, Google put out a document that outlined their criteria for judging the quality of content. And the thing that they spotlighted was something they called EAT, which stands for expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. So I'm going to do a quick rundown of this because I think when it comes to user intent, these three things are very important to focus on when you're creating blog content, when you're writing the content for your website, when you're looking at how to present your business and present yourself. So the first one is E, which stands for expertise. And so this applies to mainly the author of the content. So if you're writing blog content and you are listed as the author, or another staff member is listed as the author, then that's important, because it's going to look at whether or not you, when they look across the internet, if you would be considered an actual expert in the thing that you're talking about, right? In the topic that you're writing about. So if you're writing about photography, it's going to look around and it's going to see, okay, your LinkedIn profile, are you listed as a photographer? Do you have other content across the internet where you are giving advice about photography? Is there evidence from all across the internet, even within your own site, to support the fact that you're an expert in what you're talking about, what you're writing about? So that's expertise. It deals mainly with the author of the post, so the actual human person that is writing the content. The next one is authoritativeness, and authoritativeness is a very long word and it's hard to type, and I was double checking to make sure I spelled that one right. But authoritativeness is more of a holistic view of the person that wrote it, as I just mentioned, the website that it appears on, and then the actual content itself. Is it authoritative? And this is essentially, the differentiation between authoritative and non-authoritative would be like, is this a fluff piece? I mean, is it just like, when you were in high school and you had to write like 1,000 words, so you just put a bunch of fluff paragraphs in there and you weren't really saying much of anything? And that's because that's a major problem with blog content, because some people think that because they need to post all the time, they just create these fluff pieces just so they can check it off the list. Well, when Google looks at that, they don't see that as authoritative, because it doesn't have any richness to it. There's not like a lot of value being added. So that's going to come through like on your click-through rate, things like that. Do people interact with it? What's their time on site? If people are coming to that blog post and they're bouncing, that's a good indicator that it's not very authoritative. But then also, is your website authoritative in the space that you're in? So are you consistently creating that rich, valuable content where you've kind of established yourself as an authoritative voice in your space? And then the last one is trustworthiness. And that's just essentially, is what you're saying factual? And if you're putting statistics out there, if you're putting stuff that is meant to impact people on a factual level, this applies really heavily if you have a medical website or a financial website. Those are called YMYL, which stands for your money, your life. If your website would be considered a YMYL website, then there are higher standards for trustworthiness, because those are things that impact people's lives. And so you've got to make sure that you're linking to sources. If you reference a statistic, you link out to an authoritative source for that statistic, that you're backing up what you say and making sure that it's true, that you're not just throwing stuff out there to try to convince people. So that's EAT: expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And focusing your content and optimizing it for those three things in 2020, I think will drastically help when it comes to user intent, because you're going to consistently provide the value that people are looking for. And if you're combining that with an effective keyword strategy where you're targeting the right keywords, then that's going to be really, really good for your SEO in 2020. The second trend I wanted to talk about is the streamlined user experience. And this is a trend that's been developing for, 4 or 5 years probably, where we've kind of come down from the mountaintop of Flash websites, right? And a bunch of moving parts and animations and things like that. And I think in 2021, we're really going to see solidified the idea that a web experience should be streamlined, should be simple. You should have copy that speaks directly to the audience's needs. Again, not fluff copy, not things just to take up space because you wanted to put a block there. Making sure that you're intentional with all your content on your website, so that in every part of your website, there's useful information. There's opportunity to interact, but not relying on moving things and, fancy plugins and stuff like that for that. But looking at creating a streamlined experience for your website viewers. A part of that is reducing the barriers to people being able to interact with your site. So these are pop-ups, little sign-up things, things that slide in from the side, things that come from the top. You've all been on websites where it's like you had to unclick 5 things before you could even see the actual website. Those are going to be big no-nos in 2021 because of this streamlined user experience trend. People are going to want to interact with sites where they can immediately see the value and that they can immediately interact with it. And there's some kind of action and value right there at the front of the page, right there at the top. And then obviously, one of the main barriers is slow loading pages. So making sure that your content is fast loading, that things are streamlined, you don't have a ton of plugins, cluttering up your page. Again, the pop-ups, things like that are hindering that page speed, making sure your images are compressed, things like that. And especially on mobile, because mobile consumption of websites is through the roof and it's continually going up. So it might have leveled off a little bit during this pandemic just because people are at home more and they might be spending more time on their laptops. But tablet and phone use of mobile internet is the primary way that people view the internet. I mean, I know people that don't even have a computer, and that when they look at a website, it's through their phone. And so that's super common. And so when you're optimizing things like your page load speed and even your layout and your copy, your design, you've got to do it mobile first, because that's going to be the streamlined user experience that you need to focus on. If your mobile version of your website is tough to use, it's going to severely impact your SEO. It's going to severely impact your user experience and your opportunity to create customers from the viewers of your website. So streamlined user experience, that's the second one. And then lastly, trend number 3, video content. Again, this isn't a new one, but I think over the next year or two, this one is really, really going to be solidified. And I think Cisco said this, the company Cisco, in a report that they did that was kind of projecting a bunch of things in the industry from now till like 2023. But they pointed out that video is well on its way to surpassing all other forms of content in terms of consumption. So video content, I would say, especially during this pandemic, has gone through the roof because that's what people want. They want video content, whether it's TikTok, whether it's Instagram Reels, whether it's YouTube, whether it's Netflix, Hulu, all these streaming platforms. Everything's got a streaming service now, but it's all focused on video. And so if you, this is a conversation I have a lot with people, and it's tough because video is one of those things that it does take some experience and it does take some forethought and strategy. Now with things like TikTok, I think it's more accessible than it's ever been, because you can just pick up your phone and you can hold it up and you can talk for 15 seconds and there you've got video content. And as long as what you're saying is useful, then it's going to be great. So it's more accessible than it's ever been, but there is this kind of fear when it comes to talking about or thinking about creating video content and starting a YouTube channel and even starting a TikTok account, starting to post videos on Instagram. Because there's always a couple of pushbacks that I get. The first one is, well, I don't have any experience. Well, I would tell you, if you're concerned with content marketing and SEO, and you're really wanting to be at the forefront and grow your business online, get familiar with it. And that's one of the things I'm going to cover a good bit in the academy in the coming months is video. That's why I put the YouTube thumbnail template on there for all the pro members, because I really want to set you guys up well to learn how to begin creating valuable video content, because video content is going to surpass all other forms of content that is consumed. And we've got to be on the forefront of that. We've got to be knowledgeable. We've got to be experienced. So if you're inexperienced, then start getting experience. You need to start now getting experience so that when 2022 and 2023 get here, you're not dead in the water because you didn't take the time to learn it. And you didn't take the time to build a video content strategy for your business. Creating video content and optimizing it for search, that's what we want to do in terms of SEO. So what that looks like is you create that valuable video content, you post it to as many platforms as you can, and you make sure that you are including the keywords, that you're descriptive, you're cross-posting it to your website if that's applicable, things like that. So this trend, I think, might be the most important one. Maybe I should have made this number one, but integrating video into your marketing strategy, into your content marketing, into your SEO, making it kind of a non-negotiable, that's going to be a must for 2021 and beyond. So again, if you're a member of my academy, there's going to be a lot of content coming out in the coming months about how to create good video content, because this is so important. And if you're not a member of my academy, then I would definitely advise checking it out. Go over to heyitswill.com and click on join the academy, and you can get all the information there. Again, there's a free community. And then there's also a paid tier that goes into a lot more depth and a lot more detail about the stuff that I'm talking about here. So I'm really excited for 2021, and I hope those trends have kind of gotten you guys excited about it and looking forward to the future, and really ramping up in the new year your SEO and your content strategy. And I'm excited to hear all about it. So again, heyitswill.com, get all the information over there. Keyword research course is coming out soon in January, so look forward to that. And thanks everyone for joining live, and thanks everyone for listening and watching this later. If you don't mind, make sure you like and subscribe. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'm going to be putting out, like I just mentioned, a lot more video content, because I myself want to stay on top of that. So a lot of useful video content will be coming out, including these weekly live streams. If you're listening to the podcast, go ahead and subscribe. And I'm thankful that you guys have joined me. And check me out at heyitswill.com. You can follow me on social media, heyitswill with one L, except for TikTok, where I'm at heyitswill.com. Daily tips, daily useful nuggets of information out there. So thanks to everyone for following me, and thanks to everyone for joining me today.